What's changed is people who want to make money on this have learned how to do it. And they don't care about sick people, they don't care about public health.
Federal raids on more than a dozen local medical marijuana dispensaries yesterday had nothing to do with medicine. Money laundering and drug dealing are just a few of the allegations laid out in a search warrant for those dispensaries in King, Thurston, and Pierce counties.
Tonight, Dana Rebick has new details on what investigators say was going on behind those doors.
We don't know exactly how long this investigation has been going on, but the DEA did have undercover agents scoping out these dispensaries for some time. At one of them, we're told an undercover cop was able to buy 5 pounds of pot for $11,000. Today, the U.S. Attorney's Office explains why they went after these operations now. Box after box, federal agents collected evidence at more than a dozen medical marijuana dispensaries in western Washington. An organized series of raids in the largest crackdown on the industry in state history.
Our target investigations had nothing to do with sick people and nothing to do with medicine. It truly targeted individuals who were exploiting the laws.
Search warrants from the U.S. Attorney's Office lay out in detail the allegations. Dispensaries selling marijuana to people without medical cards and selling more than state law allows. One dispensary employee even posted this picture on his Facebook page, duffel bags full of cash with the caption, "This is going to take all night to count."
We had another one where they were literally selling pounds of marijuana out the back door to people who weren't sick at all. So none of these had to do with people who were getting medicine. They had to do with greed.
Investigators say some dispensaries were even tied into organized crime. Documents show the Game Collective in White Center is accused of bringing in large amounts of pot from California and Oregon and shipping it to the Black Disciple Gang in Chicago. The raid sparked protesters to picket in front of the federal building in downtown Seattle today.
There's going to be a few bad apples. I really think the dispensaries were probably trying to be on top of it.
It's tough on all of us who are trying to do the right thing.
Martin Nickerson, who owns a dispensary in Bellingham, feels the raids were a waste of resources, considering the Department of Justice's current position that they will not target medical marijuana dispensaries.
There's crack houses all over the place, and for them to target these stores and stuff where these accessible people from the ages of 50 to 80 years old, they can't go any other place, but it's a responsible place for them to come obtain medicine.
But the U.S. Attorney's Office stands firm. This investigation is meant to rein in and eliminate operations that were clearly breaking the law.
The public wants us to enforce criminal law when you have such flagrant violations of people who are dealing large amounts of drugs that are not just marijuana, who have guns and weapons involved. I think that's in the public interest.
There are 9 people named in this search warrant. The U.S. Attorney says they could face charges depending on the evidence seized yesterday. As far as more raids to come, investigators tell us if dispensaries are engaged in illegal activity, they can expect to be busted too. In the newsroom, Dana Rebick, Q13, Fox News.
A former U.S. attorney under President Bush is not someone you'd pin to be a marijuana supporter.
The criminal penalties associated with marijuana are not a good thing. They're ineffective, and I'd suggest they're really dangerous.
But as you just heard, John McKay has turned a new leaf. C.R. Douglas has the story of how he went from busting pot dealers to wanting to bust down pot laws.
I think that marijuana as a prohibited commodity, we have failed in that, and it's failed in every possible way. The enormous demand for marijuana in the face of criminal penalties, which has been in existence for 70 years, is spinning off enormous profits for drug cartels, for gangs, for drug dealers. And we are strategically way out of position in law enforcement by allowing the American marijuana demand and market to fund those much more serious activities.
But you knew that back as a King County prosecutor. You knew that as a U.S. attorney. I mean, now, and you weren't advocating for legalization then. What caused you to decide it is now finally time to legalize this substance?
Well, it's really important to understand your role. As the prosecutor, I was sworn to uphold the law, and I don't think the law is invalid. I think Congress and I think the legislature has the right under our constitutions to pass those laws and criminalize marijuana. I don't smoke pot. I don't want to smoke pot. If pot were legal, I would not smoke pot. It's not my choice, but it is a crime. and I have no problem with enforcing the law, and I would have no problem enforcing the law today. But I think it's a bad law. I can't say that as an official sworn to enforce that law. I can say it as a private citizen, and that's what I'm doing now.
McKay became a private citizen in a very public way. In 2006, he was one of 8 U.S. attorneys who were fired by then Attorney General Alberto Gonzales. The dismissals had nothing to do with McKay's views on marijuana, though most believe the Bush administration felt he and his colleagues weren't loyal enough to the president's agenda.
It's what? They own it. That's right.
Since leaving government, McKay has been a popular law professor at Seattle University. Why do you draw a line between pot and these other drugs, heroin, cocaine, methamphetamines, that you think should stay illegal?
Marijuana is not a narcotic. While you can be addicted to marijuana, it doesn't remove free choice in its use. Methamphetamine, many people take methamphetamine. The first time they take it, they are severely addicted to methamphetamine. That's not what the literature says about marijuana. Wouldn't it be better for us to eliminate the black market threat of the funding that comes off of the marijuana market and instead regulate it, tax it, allow the development of legitimate businesses around marijuana just as we do in alcohol?
That, in fact, is what Initiative 502 would do. It seeks to put full pot legalization on the ballot here in Washington next fall during the high turnout presidential election.
My own belief is that marijuana prohibition is only going to end when the states revolt. I think this is a clearly deficient policy, and I have no confidence that the Congress of the United States will address it anytime soon. And so my advice to states is, you need to pass your own regime. It will violate federal law, but there's precedent for it, and the states clearly have a voice in what the policy should be.
Now, you can imagine that John McKay has had to answer a lot of questions from a lot of his conservative friends about his conversion on this issue. While he acknowledges it is indeed a changed position, he says it's consistent with his decades of work in law enforcement. McKay is now convinced that that black market for pot, that it's just sending so much money to so many bad characters and creating so much violence that legalizing it is actually needed to increase public safety. Back to you guys.
CR has also had some interesting things to say about the marijuana dispensary raids in Washington this week and how our state got to where it is with pot legislation. To check that out and see more of our in-depth coverage, go to our website, Q13Fox.com.